Hello and welcome to the podcast According to Sci-Faith, where we discuss topics revolving around the compatibility of science and faith. I'm Joshua Göcking and you're listening to According to Sci-Faith. Episode 44. Why are we searching for meaning? So this is kind of a new episode or new kind of episode. I thought in these preview episodes that I'm doing, I want to try to close these episodes always with some kind of more, not really philosophical, maybe even kind of like a sermon episode where I just talk about things that I'm thinking about right now, or that I find interesting, or that I think are meaningful, or things to really think about, or really meditate on, or just let them move. Let yourself be moved by them, and just let me know what you think of them. So you can just write to me. If you know my Substack, you can write me at substack.scifaith.com. There you can also subscribe to my stuff, and you can write me messages there if you have a Substack account. And I would really like to get to know, hear from you what you think about this new concept, whether you like it, whether not, or what I can improve of it. So just let me know. I will just try it out and see where it goes. And today I want to talk about, this whole preview episode is called The Meaning of Meaning. So what do I mean by that? So actually it's, so I want to little bit to talk about why are we searching for a meaning? What might be pitfalls in this quest, or in this longing for meaning in our lives? And how did I came about it to this? I think what oftentimes interests me is what do people long for, or what is the thing that especially successful people, what pushes them, especially if they are unbelievers. Then I, as a believer, as somebody who is really driven by this. By his faith, by getting to know God, getting to get a deeper understanding of God and His nature and His being, I always try to understand if people are driven in the same way, kind of, or even more, most likely, but not for something like that, but for something completely else, in a way that they put really many hours of their day, of their lives into it, and bring huge sacrifices for that. Then I really oftentimes am interested to try to understand, or to get to understand what is driving them, why are they doing this, and so on. And I think especially interesting in this regard, I found Elon Musk, because he is apparently not driven by money or by personal gains or something like that. Not to make him more moral than he is, but if you just hear what he's saying about what drives him, what puts him, brought him to this business ideas that he had, and so on, what drives him to build these businesses, these many different businesses, and get more and more responsibility of it, and so on, then you see that this is not kind of money or something like that, but kind of that he's looking for some meaning. He's trying to find meaning in his life. And he told in one interview, I heard him talk, that he thinks this meaning that a man is searching for is to be found in scientific progress. He almost called it kind of like a religion, something like that science needs to progress, to find progress in science, and basically in the end this would lead to finding the complete truth or something like that. I might misphrase what he completely said, or maybe I use what I understand him to say, or say what I understand him to say. But what I'm thinking, or what I was thinking when I heard him talking about this, is that this is not an end in itself. Because if you say, okay, the end is scientific progress, no, progress is also leading somewhere. So this is not an end of it in itself. So it cannot be that the final goal. It cannot be the final meaning. So even though this seems to be the one for him, according to my logic or how I thought of it, this cannot be the final thing. This cannot be the final meaning behind it all. It can only maybe be the way to this meaning, but it cannot be the final meaning. And I also think scientific progress in itself is not the way to finally arrive at a final meaning, because I think there is more necessary for it, as I often talk about it in this podcast. And I think what you see from there, I mean, people like Elon Musk, who they are really driven by that, and they do not tend to deviate from this drive. They say, okay, this is the meaning that I have for my life, and they are driven by that. And even if it's other people who are more driven by like just more success or financial success, by getting that, they are driven in this way. But I think that the trap you can fall in there is that the meaning is basically not the real meaning, basically, not the real meaningful meaning, and then you are basically kind of in a hamster wheel, and you're running around and basically for nothing, which is basically what I think many of these meanings that people put their life to is, because it's not an end in itself. It's not the final thing that we are longing for. And this longing for meaning, as you can see, this is put into our identity. Everyone is longing for meaning, and therefore you can see that there has to be a real meaning in this world. Because if you look at it even if you look at it from evolution, then you will see the same thing, because you will see that we have eyes because there was light to see, and therefore we have eyes. So in an evolutionary sense, you would say we developed eyes because there was light for us to see, and therefore we developed it. And in a similar way we developed our other senses and so on, because there was something to be sensed. And in the same way, therefore, you would have to say, okay, we are longing for meaning, we are searching for meaning, because there is actually something like meaning. So life actually has a meaning. There is meaning to life. Otherwise, we would not search for it. Otherwise, we would not have this longing for it. So from this, you can already see that we really long from the fact that we long for meaning, you can really see that there is a meaning, to life. Okay, time for a short break. And as usual in these breaks, I like to read a short excerpt of my new book or my new novel, Alien Thoughts. Patricia entered her office and sat down at her desk. Exhausted, she closed her eyes and collected herself. When she opened her eyes again, her eyes fell on a photo on her desk. It showed Tom and her just before they had broken up. She wondered why it was still there. Maybe it was because she hardly ever came into this office anymore. She spent most of her time in her office at the headquarters. When she looked closer, she realized how long it had been since she had seen Tom. His face was almost foreign to her. Suddenly, memories came flooding back. She had to think of the moment when they had met for the first time. It had been in this building, one floor below, in the lecture hall where she was giving her lecture this morning. She had been in the audience then. At first she had not liked Tom. He was cheeky and asked questions in every lecture, whether he was called or not. He was not afraid to use a cheeky tone, even in front of lecturers like Boris. She believed that was why Boris had been so disapproving of her relationship with Tom. While she was calmly processing the information and asking the lecturer questions in private after the lecture, Tom was behaving the opposite way. She thought it was rude and did not have a good opinion of Tom. He, on the other hand, was very interested in her. Something about her seemed to fascinate him, although she revealed little of herself in her shy manner. Her opinion of him changed abruptly when she realized that Tom and she were very much alike, even if it didn't look that way from the outside. He was just as enthusiastic about the accomplishment of the new government and believed in their justness as she did. His cheeky manner was just another expression of the same hunger for a just world that she also felt. Over time, they got to know each other better. Tom had had experiences similar to hers. The more they realized how similar they were, the more their affection for each other grew. Their initial dislike quickly turned into a deep love. Their similar past and shared ideals connected them. An almost inseparable relationship developed. But eventually it too came to an end, Patricia realized bitterly. So this was a short excerpt in which I tell about this relationship between Patricia and Tom, so the background of it, and Tom will occur later in the novel. So if you want to find more about how this works out, what's happening between them, then I encourage you to buy the book, to read it, so you can get it on Amazon. And if you liked it, then I really encourage you to write a review. This just helps other readers to get to know the book and to know if this book is something for them too. And therefore, all these kinds of ideas of life having no meaning, basically, this can basically not be. So, what is the real meaning? I think this is then important. I think the trap can then be to look for a meaning, just that you have this longing fulfilled, this longing or this search for a meaning, and you just give you any meaning, and then this is fulfilled, and then you are content. But this is kind of like using a drug to get this kick that you are looking for. This is also not really the way to go. It's just tricking you around it, and in the end will lead to more problems than solutions, because you will get addicted to it. And I think here the same thing occurs. If you have this kind of fake meaning that you use to get this longing for meaning fulfilled, then this is kind of cheating yourself, or fooling yourself. And therefore I think this is not the solution. It's not just to say, okay, I find any meaning for my life, I look for just any meaning in my life, and then this will fulfill my longing for a deeper meaning, and therefore I will be happy this way. This cannot be the final goal. This cannot be the thing that really will work in the end. And therefore I think it is important to not just find any meaning in our lives, but to find the meaning of our lives. And the question, of course, then is, what is the meaning of our lives? What does it all mean? What are we here for? What does it mean? And I think there is this meaning that we can look for, as I have shown from even this evolutionary viewpoint, that there has to be meaning in life. And I think it's important to find this, or to get to the real meaning of life, in order to live this fulfilled life where we really are living according to the meaning of our lives. And as I of course believe, this is to be found in Jesus. This is to be found in the Word of God. This is to be found in knowing God, into getting to know God in a deeper way, in a deeper level. And this is, I think, the way to go. And I think if this is the meaning of our life, then we will come into the full fulfillment of our lives, and therefore we will then from there we can go into all the other things. There we can go into scientific progress. We can go into science and learn how God reveals himself in science, and this will make science progress. And as I have mentioned many times, especially in the podcast to the scientific method, I believe this will even increase the scientific progress to its highest measure and so on. And if we go from out of there, from this real meaning, into all the other things in which people today find some meaning, then the meaning that people find there will just be magnified, because we are coming from the true meaning, if you understand what I'm saying by this. And what's also interesting about this, and what we think also need to acknowledge from this, is that any philosophy, any viewpoint, any also interpretation of a scientific theory that denies this meaning, that denies that life has some meaning, and that says everything is just a product of random chance without any design and so on, it might be that these theories are factually true, that the facts turn out to be factually true, so really there in nature, but still, you from the thoughts we had before here, you still know that this cannot be the full truth, that the interpretation, the worldview that this theory or this look at life brings, that this has to be wrong, because we would not be searching for meaning if we were just meaningless products of some evolutionary process. If this were just the case, some meaningless evolutionary process, and we would be the result of that, then we wouldn't be people who are looking for a meaning in this world, because in our DNA it would be basically intrinsically implied that there is no meaning, so why would we look for one? And then the world, I think, would look a lot of completely different. And from this we know that all these interpretations can actually not be true. And when I look at science and at scientific discoveries and at scientific theories, I don't look from a viewpoint of it's all the truth, of course, and so on. I also don't look from a viewpoint, okay, which is in accordance to my faith and what is not. But actually, I look from this point of, okay, I know that there has to be meaning in this life. What agrees with that and what does not agree with it. And I don't discount theories that do have factually accurate results but do not support this worldview. I discount them in the way that I say, okay, their interpretation cannot be right, and therefore there needs to be something done on this theory to make it completely right. And I also believe if this interpretation is not right, this needs to be represented somewhere in the data. So if you would study them closely, you will soon, I think, find that there are gaps in this theory, or there are things that it doesn't predict or that it wrongly predicts. So they will sooner or later be falsified, I believe. But as long as they work and as long as they are the best theories for the things that we need to describe, as long as they can be considered to be factually correct, but still then I would consider their interpretation to be not this correct, because I know from this standpoint that I know there is meaning to life. I know that they cannot be correct because they basically deny that. And this is, I think, a healthy way of looking at scientific theories, where you do not deny the scientific results, where you do not deny them, but still you have a viewpoint from which you can distinguish between which scientific theories, or especially the interpretation of which scientific theories you consider to be accurate and which one you think there needs to be some improvement. And this helps you also to find where do you need in science, where do you need to look for improvement or for better ways to describe it. If you look from this standpoint of faith, which I often argue in this podcast also, that if you do science on a foundation of faith, that this will be way more productive than the other way around. And this is basically what I mean by this, that you know from your faith, from your convictions, that you know what is true and what the interpretation of these theories therefore have to reflect, and from there, if there's a theory that describes nature rather well but still has not this interpretation, then there has to be a better theory that you just know because of this fact. And this is the way I look at science, and this is, I think, a really healthy way to look at science, because you do not deny any scientific facts, but still you know where interpretations might be different according to your beliefs, and where there might be a way to improve. And then you can also see, basically check your beliefs on that, because if there is no improvement in these theories, if these theories turn out to be rock solid, then you might also check your biases. That's completely true. But still, you're working from conviction, from belief, from faith, and towards what you see in this world, what you see in nature, and not the other way around. Actually, I think nobody is really coming from the other way around, because I think these theories of evolution without any kind of design and so on mostly come from people who actually believe that the world is this way. So it's really this worldview that defines what you believe to be the truth, what you also then believe to be reflected in science, which also shapes your way of constructing theories. And therefore, you will automatically construct theories such that they are in accordance to your own personal beliefs. But if we really want to come to a theory, or to the best theories that describe science best, I think the way to do this is to really have our beliefs straight, to know what we believe, and from there move into, okay, what does this say about which interpretation should our theories have, and from there get them to agree with the data that we do have. And I think from there we can really find theories that will describe nature to its fullest and in the most accurate way. So that's everything for today's episode. I hope you liked it and you enjoyed each part of it. If you want to get in touch with me or discuss a topic or want to give me some feedback, then feel free to contact me using the contact form on my website, sci-faith.de/en. And there you can go to the contact tab and contact me. And if you have any other things or episodes you want to have covered there, or topics you want to have covered, feel free to contact me there. Also, if you are not yet familiar with the format in which this podcast is produced, let me just briefly explain it to you. So there is always at the beginning of a month or of a block, there is a big block of 4 episodes in one thing. It's kind of like a preview, which I call it, where you have the next 4 episodes all in one episode together, combined. And this is for people who like to hear long format podcasts, who have a long way to work or something else, where they can listen to a long episode and can then have a preview of the next 4 episodes all at once, and are completely up to date from the beginning of the block. For those who like their episodes shorter, who prefer it if they have a half an hour or even less of a podcast episode, for those there is every week afterwards will appear a podcast episode almost in that length, and this way I can publish every week a new podcast every episode, and everyone can have it his own way, either once a month a long chunk of content, or once a week a shorter format podcast episode. So I think that's the best way for everyone, and also for me when I'm producing it. Please also note that this is an independent podcast, which means that it is recorded, produced, and marketed by me. So I really need your support in this. So if you like this podcast, then give it a 5-star rating. And if you have the time, even write a review to it. This just helps other listeners to become aware of this podcast, and then people who might be interested in this content can become aware of it. Also, if you have friends who you think would like this content, then recommend it to them and share it with them. Also, you can support me in other ways, for example, by reading my blog and subscribing to my newsletter, or even by reading my books, which you can find on Amazon. For example, there is my latest novel out now is Alien Thoughts, which is pretty entertaining from the feedback that I gotten, and so it's also in some way related to science and faith. The topic of it is also in there, but of course you can also read the book to this podcast, Sci-Faith, The Compatibility of Science and Faith, which is also available in English since last year. Thank you for that, and now I wish you a wonderful day, and I'm looking forward for you to tune in again next time.